What is up, guys? Thick Kackis here. Thank you so much for stopping by, and today we are going to be taking the brand new Traveler's Chosen exotic sidearm just added into Destiny 2 within Season of Arrivals through 2 Crucible games and pumping out a review. Just kidding. Instead, we are taking a full 6-man fire team all using this new weapon through the entirety of the largest raid in Destiny 2's history, The Last Wish, to see how this really performs in an endgame environment. And so, let's get started. First things first, let's take a look at this brand new weapon. So the intrinsic trait is Gathering Light. Final blows with this weapon grant stacks of Gathering Light. You hold reload to consume these stacks, granting melee, grenade, and class ability energy based on the number of stacks you have. It also has another unique perk, Gift of the Traveler. Each stack of Gathering Light improves this weapon's reload, handling, and target acquisition. So, starting us off, we have the first encounter against Cali. How does this weapon perform here? Well, when you're guarding your plate, it's great. It just mows down those incoming thralls very efficiently, but it doesn't really do anything other primaries can't do. Now let's talk about that damage phase. So, this weapon, when you do have 10 stacks of Gathering Light, reloads blindingly fast, and that is going to help with DPS. But at the end of the day, as you can see, it behaves, for the most part, like you're shooting a raid boss with a normal sidearm. And as you can imagine, it's not great. And after 3 different, parts of this damage phase, we got Kalli 2 down around half health. And that's just using the weapon at a base level and your normal buffs and debuffs. So again, that's pretty unimpressive, but that's what you would expect. However, it is a sidearm. And that's special just this season because of one of the new mods added. It's called Surprise Attack. While charged with light, reloading or readying a sidearm will consume all stacks of Charged with Light and convert them into stacks of a major damage buff, which are depleted as you damage combatants with that sidearm. So essentially, for every stack of Charged with Light, you get 5 rounds of sidearm that do a ton more damage. I think it's like 50% more damage. It is a significant boost. So to complement that, we're using Charge Harvester, which gives us stacks if we don't have any, and then also stacks on stacks, which will give us essentially 2 instead of 1. And we're also using Taking Charge to get Charged with Light from Orbs of Light, which we're producing a lot of with all of our bubbles and wells. Well, how much better is the Traveler's Chosen with that mod? Well, it turns out pretty significantly. As you can see, we pretty much got to what we left Cali at last time only 2 out of 3 phases in. So we just did a huge amount more damage, and we could have done even more. We actually kind of all ran out of supers in that final phase because of bad timing, but really, that's a pretty impressive result. But at the end of the day, you have to use a very specific build to make that possible, and you're putting a lot of work into something that you could just switch to a special weapon or a heavy weapon and just one phase Cali no problem. So at the end of the day, this weapon is just a 5 out of 10. It is perfectly average. Obviously, it becomes above average when you use this build, but certainly not before. In any event, it's time to move on to Shuro Chi. So, is this weapon capable of dealing 1/6 of her health? Well, it better be, or else the team wipes. So we were using the Charge with Light combo because why not? We're testing this weapon at its best, and if you're using a sidearm for endgame play, might as well use the best mod with it. Turns out when you do, it kind of actually melts Shuro Chi. Like, it doesn't just do decent damage, it does great damage. I've used shotguns that don't take her health down as fast as this sidearm with this combo. Especially because Shuro Chi is all about that burst damage, it really helps always having Oppressive Darkness grenades because of the reload of this weapon when you're at, 6 or more stacks. Additionally, there's a lot more adds in this encounter, and this weapon is great at taking out adds, and it also lets you use your grenades or potentially use your melee if you have a melting point, for example, on the adds, and then rely on the weapon giving you those abilities back so you also can use them against the boss, which is quite handy as well. Overall, we're actually quite impressed by this weapon here, so I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. Like, actually better than you think with that mod. Without it, it would probably be somewhere around, a 6, but that's the rating. Let's move on to the next encounter, and here we've got another boss fight. This one is against Morgeth. So, at the beginning of this encounter, obviously you have to deal with a lot of adds, and just like last time, the weapon is great, like especially the grenades here, because the adds all kind of spawn together. You can easily throw a grenade, take out a group of adds, use the weapon to take out the next group, and then reload, get your grenade back, and just kind of chain back and forth with that combo. Really powerful weapon in that regard for getting your abilities, like so much more. It's basically like Grenadier on steroids, really. But let's move on to that damage phase. So obviously we're going for that one phase, but it does mean that we're gonna have to time the orbs of light and our super usage, because we want as many shots of surprise attack as we can possibly get. The first time we weren't quite able to melt Morgeth. We were like almost there. So we did it again, and with better timing of our supers, as you can see, we were capable of getting that one phase. And for like just a sidearm to one phase a boss, like that is pretty darn impressive, and that shows the power of surprise attack. But remember that surprise attack is better than usual on this weapon. You get the bonus after you've readied or reloaded your weapon. The fact that this weapon reloads blindingly fast means that you can get those extra damaging rounds way faster than on most other sidearms. In any event, it is time to move on from there to the next encounter, and the encounter I always find one of the most interesting, and that is the vault encounter. Finally, we don't have a boss, we just have a really realistic depiction of what you're going to be facing in most combat scenarios within Destiny 2, which is a bunch of red bars and some very powerful yellow bars in terms of the knights. So obviously, red bars, fantastic as always, but the knights are an interesting one. On the one hand, always having oppressive darkness grenades for them really help take them down quicker. On the other hand, I'd be lying if I said it wasn't pretty stressful trying to take down these knights with just a sidearm before they wipe your team. Even when you have surprise attack active, you're not doing that much damage, and you really have to have it active. If you don't have it, like this thing does like no damage to those knights. So overall here, like you really want that surprise attack, and even then it's not that good. So I'm gonna have to give it a 6 out of 10 within the vault encounter. However, it's time to move on from there to the big daddy of damage phases against Riven herself. This boss has been attacked with all different kinds of space weapons, but it definitely wasn't expecting 6 guardians to roll up strapped with Glocks, let me tell you. So, for the Riven encounter, the first damage phase, we took off surprise attack. We are using this weapon just completely raw, and as you can see, it does what you would expect, which is really not much. Pretty pathetic damage numbers. I mean, I did the most and I didn't even break 200k. Like, that is pathetic. So, not off to a good start. Now, obviously, if you can get that mod going, you can get a significant damage buff. It's got to be better, right? Well, as you can see, even with that, not doing great. I mean, we do increase our damage significantly. Now we have 2 of us almost hitting 250,000 damage. That is a huge increase from last time, but even then, it's nowhere near what we need it to be. So this weapon here against Riven is just trash. I've got to give it like a 3 out of 10. It is not just low, it is lower than a lot of other primaries, even with that surprise attack mod on. And here you're not even really using a lot of abilities. Yeah, you're gonna get an oppressive darkness grenade, but you've really got to be careful with them or else you'll pop an eye. However, moving on from there, we have one final encounter, the Queen's Walk. And here, this weapon, performs adamantly. You have a lot of ads, and this weapon is great at dealing with those guys, and you're able to really make the most of those abilities. You have a lot of shielded enemies, you have a lot of phalanxes, and being able to grenade them or melee them is very, very useful. Now, I didn't end up getting teleported, but talking to the teammates who did, they were saying that inside there, it's still pretty darn good, does struggle a bit against the knights, but is a little bit better than the Vault encounter because you don't have to worry about them wiping your entire team. You can kind of pick them off at your leisure. So within this encounter, I'm going to bump it up to a 7 out of 10. Actually, pretty darn handy little weapon here. And so guys, that leaves us with the overall rating. How good is the Traveler's Chosen throughout the Last Wish raid? Well, it's certainly a lot better with that surprise attack mod. Because without it, it might as well just be a normal legendary sidearm, because none of its abilities really give it significant damage boosts aside from fast reload, but that's not very much. But because this mod was introduced, if you want to rock a sidearm, it makes sense to rock this mod. And when you do, it really does up the power of this weapon and many other sidearms beyond most other primaries. Hey, if there was a version of surprise attack for pulse rifles, I'd be all over it. But there isn't, so that's an advantage of using this weapon, is being able to also utilize this powerful mod that goes with it. And therefore, all things considered, I'm going to give it, I think, a 6 out of 10. Above average, and that's certainly good for a primary, and certainly a different way to play this raid. Guys, that's it for the video. I hope you enjoyed, found this informative, and if you did, please remember to help me out by simply rating and especially sharing this video. If you guys want to see more Destiny 2 content similar to this, don't be afraid to slap that subscribe button. If you want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter at RickKackis. That's linked in the description down below. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.